objects are awesome, and certainly it's going to be great to be able to use them as a format to communicate with the server, between the client and the server. But an array is pretty awesome too. And again, this is just a little script to play with creating a new array and putting some values in it. And we notice that the first index or the first position within an array, which basically allows us to index into values that are stored in it, is a 0. And the thing that goes hand in hand with an array is this idea of a for loop. A for loop is set up with a counter that can be used in the position of the index. So we could go through this, whether this is 3 things that we want to store, or 50 things that we want to store, or 5 million things that we want to store. This tiny little loop will say, okay, start at 0, go for as long as our index is less than the length, and increment the index. This line says to do all of that for this line of code. So let's explore what this looks like. I'm going to make sure that my file, I'm going to make sure that my file is saved, and I'm going to load it into my browser here. And if I take a look at what's going on, I create an array, I store 3 things in it, and then I loop through, and notice that it's the same line of code each time that is printing out the contents in the array. Now, there's a lot going on here because we're declaring this new data structure, indexing into it and assigning strings to each position, and then looping through to print them out. But I'm going to look at something that commonly happens in this kind of loop structure, an accident that can happen where we say, well, for each one of them, I want to be able to print it out. So the value of the index, if I say it's less than or equal to the length, and I load that in, so I just modified that ever so slightly, nothing actually, blows up or anything, but you notice that by going from 0 through to, instead of the value 2, we go to the value 3 by saying less than or equal to. I run off the end of the array, and it prints out something that is undefined. This can happen a lot. It's a very simple mistake to make, to say instead of less than, it's less than or equal to. And that's where we get into these undefined values. And certainly when rendering web pages controlled by JavaScript controllers that have an error like that that goes into something that's undefined, we have problems, people. We have real problems. So watch that one. You're going to have to make sure that it's less than and not less than or equal to. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do one more thing too. I'm going to say, all right, well, I actually want to do something pretty fun. I want to say, I want to push a value onto the array. I'm going to push a cow. I said pushing cows is just not right, but I'm going to push one anyway here. Sorry, it was a typo. And then I'm going to print out the array, and I'm going to try to print out the array actually without doing the less than or equal to, but just the less than. That format, that pattern that you're seeing for how to print out an array is a good one there to use. I'm going to save that. I'm going to reload it. And now, instead of seeing undefined, I actually do see, this was the previous version that we had where we looked at going one more value too far. I actually have the array is actually accessed correctly. I'm going through and I'm printing out everything that's in the array that's determined by this length associated with the array. And I see that I've added cow there through this operation on the array, this array name of the variable dot push, I've added on cow. And though this is not extremely exciting maybe in terms of what we're seeing in the array values, it's just showing you the mechanisms of the array and how you can add things to it and actually modify the array. Okay, so that's understanding a little bit about arrays and for loops, which will be very handy in processing large sets of objects, which we can store in arrays.